priests and the Pharisees met with Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember that while that liar was still alive, he said, 'I will be raised to life 3 days later.' Give orders, then, for his tomb to be carefully guarded until the third day, so that his disciples will not be able to go and steal the body and then tell the people that he was raised from death. This last lie would be even worse than the first one." "Take a guard," Pilate told them. "Go and make the tomb as secure as you can." So they left and made the tomb secure by putting a seal on the stone and leaving the guard to watch. After the Sabbath, as Sunday morning was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. Suddenly there was a violent earthquake. An angel of the Lord came down from heaven, rolled the stone away, and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid that they trembled and became like dead men. The angel spoke to the women. "You must not be afraid," he said. "I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has been raised, just as he said. Come here and see the place where he was lying. Go quickly now and tell his disciples. He has been raised from death, and now he is going to Galilee ahead of you. There you will see him. Remember what I have told you." So they left the tomb in a hurry, afraid and yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. And suddenly Jesus met them and said, "Peace be with you." They came up to him, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. "Do not be afraid," Jesus said to them. "Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." Jews, Pilate, whose job was to keep the peace. Pilate, the governor, with the authority, wrested, stolen, taken from the Hebrews, from the chief priests, and from the king, known as Herod. Pilate, who had the power of life and death. Pilate, who controlled the police forces, who could assign armed guards here and there. Pilate, who you remember as Good Friday dawned, had before him a prisoner brought by the Jews who was accused of blasphemy. A prisoner named Jesus of Nazareth. Pilate, who looked and examined the case and said to the Jews as they clamored about and said, "He deserves death. Under our law, he deserves death." Pilate, who argued, "Under my law, there's nothing wrong with this man. He is innocent. He has done nothing that Roman authority can punish him for. But we want him crucified." Pilate, who even started to argue the case of Jesus. I'll tell you what, this being your Passover feast, choose between this other criminal who's been caught in the act, named Barabbas. Choose between him and Jesus of Nazareth. Choose between the criminal and the man who is innocent. "Let Barabbas go," they cried. "Crucify him." Pilate, giving in, to the political cries, to the emotions of the people, finally takes a basin of water, places it in front of them all, and says, all right, I sentence him to death by crucifixion. But before you, I wash my hands of this matter. I want nothing to do with it. They took Jesus out and under the guard, with the guard of the Roman soldiers assigned by Pilate to make sure that everything was done, that there was no riot, that he was properly crucified, dead. Jesus was crucified. Good Friday. The events, by the evening, Jesus was dead. Wonder how Pilate slept that night. Probably quite soundly. He had dealt with a pesky, troublesome problem. For years, people had been claiming that this man, Jesus of Nazareth, was some kind of a Messiah, a new emperor, a new king. And now he's dead, gone. The case is closed. Put the file away, slam the door. It's over. And Pilate has washed his hands of the whole matter. Then the next day, who comes before Pilate again? The same chief priests, the same scribes, the same rabbis, the same motley crew that had come the day before demanding that Jesus be crucified. Now what do they want? Now we want you to know, Pilate, that unless you put a guard on the tomb, his disciples are likely to go out and steal his body and claim that he was raised from the dead just as he said. Pilate can't shake this guy. He can't shake these crazy people with their emotions. All right, you take the guard and make that tomb secure. We often bypass this assigning of the guard in our understanding of Holy Week leading to Easter. Good Friday marks the crucifixion of Christ, and generally we end all our pictures and our thinking with the pictures of Christ being brought down from the cross and taken to the grave. The dead body, the Pieta. Very, very few artists have even attempted to deal with the assigning of the guard. What artist would you like to paint that? I guess I could picture a Rembrandt-style painting of that. Rembrandt, who used light and color so effectively. Rembrandt, who painted the most classic scene of the crucifixion, of Jesus being brought down from the cross, with all the faces dark, the disciples darkened in a black background with just lights on the face of the dead Christ. And Joseph of Arimathea at the foot of the cross offering up his silk and his special cloths to wrap the body of Christ in. And Mary in grief over on the side with a secondary light. Picture Pilate assigning the guard. Go, take the guard and make the tomb secure. In the background could be all the darkness of the guards, the presence of the military just kind of lost in the background. Maybe a glint here or there from a sword or from a spear or from a piece of armor that they carried. But the main light being on the faces of those elders and those priests, those people who now had the responsibility thrown on their shoulders. They were old men who had the job of young men. Go and make the tomb secure. Take all the power you need. Do it. Do it. And in their faces would be reflected the fear. Remember, they came to Pilate with these words. That liar, talking about Jesus, that liar, that deceiver, said he would be raised from the dead on the third day. Therefore, it being the second day, you should assign a guard for the tomb. Make it secure. They feared, first of all, a hoax. A hoax. Jesus' body could be stolen out of a grave where there's a rock rolled, no matter how big that rock is, could be stolen away, and all the people wander around and proclaim he's not in the tomb because he is alive. A hoax. They said that second lie would be worse than the first. And what was the first lie that they proclaimed? That Jesus claimed to be the Son of God. That he was the Messiah. No. But then there would be a second, even more terrifying fear, and that would be the fear that what had happened, what Jesus had promised, might indeed happen. He may be raised. They went out and they made the tomb secure. I love that. They made it secure. They rolled a rock in front of it, and then they sealed the edges around the rock. They made sure that rock could not be moved. And then they set guards. We usually picture 2 guards there, but nobody knows how many. There may have been a dozen, and most likely there was a small squad. For they had to go through the night for at least a day and a half, standing different shifts, making sure that they kept awake and that there was no attempt to steal that body from that tomb. For the Roman soldiers who were there, it must have been the dumbest assignment they had ever had. But they did it because they were under orders. How much more security could you want? How we wish Jesus was secure, and how much trouble we have facing the fact that he is, as our Easter message proclaims, alive. There are as many different interpretations of Easter and what happened as there are people who can speak them. Each of us has our own understanding. Even the gospel writers writing about the same event would give different facts, name different witnesses, speak of different times. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and then Paul all refer to the resurrection of Christ with a different account. If you're looking for a historic account, the facts found by a fact-finding commission, you will not find it in the scriptures. All of the words are biased, and they are biased in this way. They proclaim that Christ is alive. The facts may differ. The interpretation may differ. But the fact the message, the proclamation, Christ is alive. Now, we can take Easter, and we do. We can take Easter and call it Easter, instead of the day of resurrection that would remind us of death and life. We can call it Easter, make nice cards, give candy, give out all kinds of goodies. We can celebrate it with stories that have nothing to do with the resurrection. We can talk about the coming of spring and celebrate that as if this were some kind of a celebration of the renewal of life. And yes, the resurrection lends itself perfectly to that. We can take in our understanding of this account in the resurrection, we can say, well, what this story really means is that the teachings of Jesus are eternal. The things that he talked about, like they talk about eternal truths. Like the music of Beethoven or Bach, it's eternal, it's going to last forever. Or the writings of Shakespeare. Or we can say that the Spirit of Jesus lives among us. Isn't that great? His Spirit is undying. Oh, the spirit of positive thinking and miracles and prayer and looking for blessings and all of that. The Spirit of Jesus is undying. Small s on Spirit, thank you. He lives among us as Socrates lives among us, or the writers of the Constitution, or some great teacher. Or maybe we can say about Easter that the language of the accounts is great poetry. He is alive. He is not here. He is risen. Do not be afraid. Of course, it's not to be taken literally. It speaks of a more profound truth about God's love and mercy and all that. No. All of these things are like seals around the tomb. They cubbyhole, they divert, they push our main flow of traffic on this day off into something which may have truth in it and may be right, but does not contain it all. The Gospels, Paul, John, the church, all of the disciples, all of us proclaim with one voice, one accord, Christ is risen from the dead. Because he lives, you and I shall live also. Risen from the dead. Not the coming of spring. Not Easter bunnies or jelly beans. Not lilies. Easter could be proclaimed in the midst and the grayness of winter, in all the cold and bitterness. And it has been. Or it can be proclaimed in the summer or in the fall as we face the autumn of our lives. The resurrection is what we proclaim and what we speak about. And how do you look at it? We have no witnesses to the resurrection. We have a problem. Nobody was there to see the body of Jesus get up and move and have life. They saw him die. They saw him put into the tomb. They saw him afterwards. And we have no reason to disbelieve that anymore than that this sun, which rose this morning and some of us saw, is the same sun that rises every day. You don't have to see it rise to know that it came up. Stand out looking under the stars. If you look for a star far away or a planet in the sky, you may not see it until you look off just a little bit to the side, to the angle. Sailors at sea it's a common fact among sailors on the ocean that when they're looking for a ship or for lights on the horizon, they don't look directly at where the light would be or at the horizon, but they look a little bit above or below it. And there in their vision, they will catch the light or see the ship. So it is with Easter, with the resurrection. All the facts are not there. There are holes all through the story. But we're not looking for that, are we? We're not looking for a news account or the results of a historical study. Look at Easter. In the morning, a bored guard sits with his face being pinched, trying to keep awake. He rouses and dozes and he opens his eyes, looks into the stars, into the sky, billions of stars, as if he were awaking himself from the grave. A tree stands over on the side and the wind blows and the leaves move, and as the wind becomes stronger, the leaves, the underside of the leaves, the silver brightness of the leaves catch the early morning dawn and they show the light. There are shouts off in the distance and the sound of running feet and the excitement of voices. There's the light of people we know and people in our memories as they stand looking towards the sunrise and having the light glow on their faces as strongly as it glows in their hearts. We look to trying to see. And we catch these other things around. And then when we look at these things, we see the signs of life. Our proclamation on Easter is that God raised Jesus. That somehow this dead man got up with life. And walked about and let people touch him and touch as he touched others. He said to them, "Don't be afraid." For even the disciples knew the fear of the Hebrew high priest, that Jesus may indeed be raised from the dead. Don't be afraid. Feed my sheep. Lo, I am with you always. A proclamation on Easter is that in the midst of the earthquake, in the midst of the angel, in the midst of the messengers and the disciples, in the midst of all that goes on about us, all the things that we will enjoy this day, all the things that we will experience, our families, our friends, our church, amidst it all, there is this central core of proclamation: all is well. All is well. Love triumphs. Death is not the end. The end is life. Christ has risen. Eternal God, you are the God of our lives. From birth and through all our days, you go with us. We acknowledge your love and your care as we turn to you to offer our prayers of thanksgiving and joy on this day. Help us to see through all the trappings the unique and special joy of Easter, of the resurrection, of Christ being the first fruits of the dead. We trust your promise. We trust your prediction that because our Lord lives, we live also. We thank you, Lord, that there is nothing in all of creation, no powers, no temptations, no problems, no illness, that we can be separated from you from. There is nothing in all creation that can separate us from the love of Jesus Christ. We thank you for this joy and this confidence by which we can live and dwell secure. Lord, we offer our prayers in the name of our risen Christ, for all who are in need, for all who are ill, and all who grieve this day. So much of life goes on about us, and we seem to be insignificant or to be lost in the shuffle. When we feel that way, we need you to be not be afraid.